Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring some witchy journal prompts.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah,
Ah,
I found this really cool blog post.
okay.
It's called 50 Witchy Journal Prompts,
Hmm.
and it's by Clara Penrose. It was posted on Lestallion on December 26th of this year,
Okay.
so very recently.
Very cool.
And I thought this would be interesting, not that we're trying to become witches or anything,
Right.
but I thought it'd be really interesting to look at these prompts
Yeah.
and see how they can apply to, all of us
Sure,
in terms of
Violet.
creativity and introspection.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting, how the blog post kind of frames this.
Yeah.
Like, they call journaling this magical practice
Yes.
where you're setting intentions and reflecting, and that just, really speaks to the power of journaling
It does.
to help us kind of process our emotions and, be
No.
more self-aware and even, I think, boost creativity.
For sure. So the blog post is divided into 5 categories of prompts, and we're going to go through each one
Okay.
and pull out a couple that we think are really fascinating to kind of talk about and dig deeper into.
Sounds great.
So the first one is exploring your inner magic. Okay.
I like it.
And the first prompt is, what does being witchy mean to you?
Ooh, I like that.
Right? So we're not talking, like pointy hats and broomsticks here.
Right.
We're really thinking about what does that word witchy
Right.
even mean to us?
Absolutely. I think that's such a good starting point
Yes.
because it really makes us, define it for ourselves.
Exactly.
It's not about, fitting into somebody else's box or definition, but like,
Right.
what does it actually mean to me?
Yes. It's about reclaiming the word and making it our own. And then the next one that goes along with this is describe your unique magical gifts.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. So again, we're not talking about like, supernatural powers. But what are your strengths?
Mhm.
What are your talents?
Yeah.
What are even the quirky things about you
Right.
that make you special?
Exactly. I think that's such a powerful exercise in self-reflection,
Yes.
like recognizing those parts of ourselves
Absolutely.
that make us unique.
Yeah. And it kind of goes along with that idea of like, personal power
Absolutely.
and realizing what makes you feel strong and empowered.
Yes, it's like identifying those gifts not just as skills, but as
Yes.
inherent qualities
Right.
that we bring to the table.
Exactly. And it's about celebrating that.
Yes.
So the next category is connecting with nature and the seasons.
Okay.
And I love this one because I think, we kind of go through life and we forget that we're really connected to nature.
Absolutely.
And so one of the prompts here is, how do the changing seasons affect your energy?
That's a good one.
Right. Like how does spring make you feel different than winter?
Right.
And how do those changes in nature
Yeah.
actually affect how you feel and your energy levels?
Right. Because it's
Yeah.
something we just kind of, go through, right? We don't necessarily pay attention to.
We don't think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it makes a lot of sense. If you think about it, in the spring, you're coming out of the darkness of winter, there's more sunlight,
Yes.
things are blooming, and it makes sense that your energy levels would be higher.
Totally. And then in the fall, when things start to
Yeah.
buy back,
Yeah.
it makes sense that your energy might be a little bit lower.
Right. And it's interesting. I was thinking about this, and it reminds me of how, like, in ancient traditions,
Yes.
people really honored these seasonal shifts,
Innovative.
with different rituals and celebrations.
Exactly.
It was like this recognition that we're not separate from nature, but we're a part of it.
Right.
And so being in tune with that, can be really grounding.
It can.
Another prompt from this section is, write about a time you felt completely at peace in nature.
I like that one. And I think we all have those moments, whether it's being at the beach or, hiking in the mountains.
Yeah.
What are those places that, just make you feel at peace and connected to nature?
I remember once I was hiking through a redwood forest,
Oh, wow.
and the air was so still and quiet.
Oh.
And the sunlight was filtering through the trees, and it just felt it was this
Oh.
incredibly powerful, ancient energy. I was just
Yeah.
surrounded by it.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And, I think just remembering and even sharing those experiences through writing can help us kind of tap back into those feelings.
Absolutely. So next, we move into the realm of manifestation and intentions.
Okay.
And this is a concept I think that's often misunderstood.
It is.
And so I'm interested to see what the blog post has to say about it.
Me too.
But it basically talks about, how we can use the power of our mind and focus our energy and our belief to bring things into being.
Yeah. It's like that idea that we can kind of shape our own reality
We can.
to some extent. But I think the blog also cautions against, having these unrealistic expectations
Yeah.
that, we can just wish for something and it'll magically appear.
Right.
It's really about aligning, our actions with our goals,
Yes.
taking those concrete steps
Yes.
to make things happen.
It's like that saying, the universe helps those who help themselves.
Exactly.
So you can't just, sit back and wish for things to happen.
Right.
You got to actually take action.
Absolutely.
So one of the prompts that really stood out to me in this section is, what's one new intention you'd like to set?
That's a great prompt.
Right. And I think, as we're going through these prompts,
Yeah.
it's a good thing to start thinking about.
Absolutely. And, the blog talks about being very specific with our intentions.
Yes.
So not just vague desires,
It is that.
but really getting clear about what we want.
Yes.
And then, thinking about what steps can we take today to move closer to that goal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So the next category is honoring your ancestry and spiritual lineage.
Okay.
And this might sound a little witchy specific,
Great.
but I think there's a broader message here that applies to everyone.
Absolutely.
And it's really just about acknowledging the impact that our family history has on who we are today.
Right. We all come from somewhere. And those ancestral stories,
Yes.
whether we know them or not,
Right.
have shaped our values, our beliefs,
Yeah.
even our, patterns of behavior.
Exactly. So one of the prompts in here is, how has your family history shaped who you are?
It makes you think,
It does.
like, what stories have been passed down through your family and
Yeah.
how have those stories, impacted you?
Yes. And what, kind of patterns or beliefs have been passed down, through generations.
Absolutely.
And then there's a prompt that says, write a letter to your ancestors.
Ooh, that's interesting.
I know, right? And imagine expressing gratitude, for those good things they passed down to you.
Yeah. But also maybe, acknowledging the difficult parts
Right.
of your heritage and how they've shaped you.
Yeah, it's like acknowledging that full spectrum.
Yes.
The good and the bad.
Right. It's all part of our story.
Exactly.
So the final category we're going to talk about today is embracing self-love and shadow work.
Ooh.
So I know shadow work sounds a little intense,
It does.
but the blog really presents it in a very accessible way.
Okay.
It basically means confronting those parts of ourselves
Okay.
that maybe we don't like so much.
Right.
Those parts of us that we maybe try to hide or deny.
Yeah.
And so it's really about self-acceptance, not negativity.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we are all multifaceted.
Right.
And we have both light and shadow within us.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes us whole.
And I think that's something, that a lot of people struggle with.
Yes.
Is embracing those parts of ourselves that
Yeah.
we don't necessarily like. Right. And there's a prompt in this section that asks, what's a limiting belief you've overcome?
Oh, I like that.
Right. And this could be anything, like maybe you used to believe you weren't good at something and you've
Right.
realized, no, I actually am good at this.
Right.
Or maybe you had this limiting belief about yourself that's no longer true.
Exactly.
So it's about recognizing how we've grown and changed.
It's a good way to kind of like celebrate our progress
It is.
and acknowledge that we're not static.
Right.
We're constantly evolving.
Yes. So before we jump into the next batch of prompts,
Yeah.
just wanted to pause for a moment
Sure.
and see what's resonating with you so far.
Yeah.
Have any of these prompts sparked your curiosity or made you think differently?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we'll be back in a flash to delve even deeper into this magical world of self-discovery.
Sounds great. Welcome back. So, we were exploring connecting with nature and the seasons.
Right.
And the blog had some interesting thoughts on the moon.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so there's a prompt that asks us to kind of reflect on
Oh.
our connection to the moon's phases.
Mm.
And this might sound a little woo-woo,
Sure.
but it's really about tuning into the rhythms around us, right?
Yeah.
Even if we don't follow astrology,
Right.
there's something undeniably powerful about, like, the moon's cycles.
I agree. Yeah. It's a cosmic dance. And scientifically,
Yes.
the moon does affect the tides.
Yeah.
And we are mostly water as
Well,
humans.
Exactly.
So it's not a stretch to think that those energies might be influencing us too.
I think that's right.
And I don't think the blog is necessarily advocating for moon magic or anything.
Right.
But it's really just encouraging us to observe and just acknowledge that everything's interconnected.
Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah. Speaking of connecting with nature, there's also a prompt that asks us to think about our favorite natural spaces
Mm-hmm.
and how they make us feel connected to the earth.
Okay.
So what are those places,
Yeah.
where you feel grounded and centered and at peace?
Right.
And I think those can be different for everybody,
For sure. Yeah.
whether it's the forest, the beach, a garden,
Absolutely.
whatever. What are those places for you?
And you know what I like is how the blog encourages us to not just identify those places, but to really explore,
Yes.
how they make us feel.
Yeah.
And is it the feeling of the sunlight on your skin, or, the sound of birds,
Yes.
or the smell of pine needles, like all those little sensory details.
It's about engaging all of our senses
Yeah.
when we're in nature, not just being there, but really experiencing it.
Exactly.
So there's another prompt in this section, and, it does sound a little witchy, but it asks us to explore how we work with herbs or plants in our rituals.
Okay.
But we don't have to be, brewing potions to kind of tap into that.
That's right.
Think about even essential oils that you might use,
Right.
or the teas that you drink.
Exactly.
There's a reason why certain plants have been used for healing and ritual for centuries.
And across so many cultures, too.
And so many different cultures.
It's fascinating.
It really is.
It is.
So even if you don't necessarily subscribe to, specific magical properties,
Right.
there's something about connecting with plants that just feels therapeutic.
Absolutely. I think it's because, again, we're not separate from nature.
Right.
We're part of it.
Yeah.
And so engaging with plants, whether we're, growing herbs or, going to a botanical garden, or even just stopping to smell the flowers, it can be a powerful way to, ground ourselves.
Absolutely.
Connect with the earth.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Okay, switching gears a little bit back into the manifestation and intentions realm.
Okay.
There's a prompt that asks us to think about a time when a manifestation actually came true for us.
Oh, I like that.
So it's easy to get caught up in what we haven't manifested yet.
Right.
But this prompt's really making us think about those times when it did work,
Yeah.
And I think that can be really powerful
I agree.
because it reminds us that we actually do have that power
We do.
to shape our reality. And again, it's not about just wishing.
Right.
It's about putting in the effort,
Yes.
holding that intention,
Absolutely.
and taking action.
I think the blog also really highlights gratitude
Yes.
as a big part of this too.
It is.
Not just focusing on what we want, but also appreciating what we have.
Yes.
Because gratitude really shifts our perspective.
Yes.
From a place of lack to a place of abundance.
But it does.
And I think when we're in that state of appreciation,
Yeah,
we naturally attract more positive experiences.
for sure. And there's a prompt that asks us to reflect on what it feels like to fully believe in your power to create your own reality.
Ooh, that's a powerful one.
Right. And it's about owning our choices
Yes.
and our actions
Mm.
and understanding that they really do have this ripple effect on the world around us.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
So moving into honoring your ancestry and spiritual lineage, there's a prompt that I thought was interesting. It asks us to reflect on how our ancestry might influence our spiritual path, even if we don't, consciously follow their traditions.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, even if, our ancestors were of a different religion or
Right.
or a different spiritual path than ours,
Right.
I think it can still influence us.
I agree. And I think it's interesting how, those stories become part of our own narrative,
Yeah.
whether we realize it or not.
For sure. And, even understanding that, I think, can be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it gives us insights into, why we believe what we believe.
Right, yeah.
And how we see the world.
It's like understanding ourselves on a deeper level.
It is. Yeah, for sure. And then the blog asks us to think about or write about a time when we felt connected to our ancestors or spiritual guides. And I know that might sound a little out there for some people,
Yeah.
but I think the core message here is about recognizing that we're part of something larger than ourselves.
Right. And even if we don't believe in, ancestral spirits or anything,
Sure.
I think there's still that sense of connection to something beyond our individual existence.
For sure. And, whether that's, a higher power or
Right.
or nature or the
Yeah.
universe, whatever it is, I think it's good to tap into that feeling.
I think you're right. It can be very grounding and humbling.
Yeah, it can.
Yeah. And I like how the blog talks about, honoring those who came before us,
Yeah.
recognizing their influence in our lives.
Yes.
And I think that's a good way to kind of keep their memory alive and recognize that, we're part of this lineage that extends, far beyond our own lifetime.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thought. There's also a prompt that asks us to write about a family tradition that feels magical or sacred
Oh, okay.
and how it connects us to our roots.
I like that.
And that could be anything, like a holiday ritual or even just a family recipe.
Absolutely.
It's really about finding meaning in those shared experiences.
And that feeling of connection, too.
Yes, for sure. All right. Ready to tackle the final category?
Yeah, let's do it.
Embracing self-love and shadow work. We were talking a little bit about it before, but
We were.
the blog describes shadow work as working to heal the parts of ourselves. And I think that's a lifelong journey.
I think you're right.
It's about recognizing those parts of ourselves that we might try to hide or deny.
Right, those shadow parts.
Right.
Yeah.
But true self-love is embracing it all.
Exactly. It's about being honest with ourselves, even when it's uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And realizing, that's okay. We all have those parts.
Absolutely. And it's about understanding and integrating those aspects rather than just, trying to shove them down or pretend they don't exist.
Yes. So there's a prompt that asks us to reflect on the importance of forgiveness and compassion in our personal growth. And, we are often our own worst critics.
We are.
We hold ourselves to these really high standards.
Yes.
But I think forgiveness for ourselves and for others is so essential to moving forward.
Absolutely. And the blog also talks about self-compassion, which I think is so important.
It is.
It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer a friend.
Exactly. And we all make mistakes.
We do.
We all have flaws.
Absolutely.
It's part of being human.
It is.
And there's a prompt that I thought was interesting. It says, write about how you show yourself kindness and grace when you're working through challenges.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. Because it's so easy to beat ourselves up when things are tough.
Yeah.
But how can we be our own best friend?
Right.
Our own cheerleader during those times?
Yeah, it's about recognizing that we have those inner resources,
We do.
of strength and resilience. And when we can tap into those, especially when we're feeling, overwhelmed or stressed, we can move through those challenges with a little more grace.
Absolutely. So before we move on to that final set of prompts, I just want to pause for a moment and reflect, what's come up for you so far.
Yeah, good idea.
What prompts have sparked a new thought or a feeling?
I'm definitely feeling inspired.
Me too.
Yeah.
And we'll be back in a jiffy to wrap things up.
Sounds good. Okay, so we're back and ready for our final set of prompts. I'm so excited to see what else this blog has in store.
Yeah, me too. I've really been enjoying these.
Yeah. It's amazing how much depth there is to these.
Yeah. They really make you think. Right. They really do. So, we were talking about this idea of embracing self-love and shadow work.
Right.
And there's a prompt in here about integrating those light and dark energies into our practices.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I know it sounds kind of esoteric, but it's actually a powerful concept.
I think so too. Yeah.
Because we all have both.
We do.
We're not just sunshine and rainbows.
Exactly.
And I think recognizing that and kind of, embracing all those parts of ourselves is what makes us whole.
Absolutely. And, it goes back to that yin and yang idea.
Yes.
Like you can't have one without the other.
Exactly. You need both to create that balance.
Absolutely.
I don't know. It reminds me of kintsugi. That Japanese art where they repair broken pottery with gold.
Yes.
And so it actually highlights the cracks instead of trying to hide them.
I love that.
It's like those imperfections are part of the beauty.
They are.
Yeah. And then there's a prompt that asks us to write about a fear or insecurity that we've released. So how have we let go of those things that have been holding us back?
Yeah. And how did our rituals or practices, help us to do that?
And again, it doesn't have to be anything witchy.
Right.
But we all have things
Yeah.
that we do, whether it's meditation or talking to a friend or taking a walk.
Yeah. All those things can be rituals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's really just finding those things that work for us.
And doing them with intention.
Yes. That's the key. It's like creating that space for healing and transformation.
I think that's a really important point, yeah.
And then there's a prompt in here about self-care.
Okay.
And I just want to say I love how the blog really emphasizes this because I think it's so important.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not selfish to take care of ourselves.
It's not.
It's essential.
It is. We can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to replenish ourselves.
Right.
So that we can actually show up for ourselves and for others.
Absolutely.
And so the blog is encouraging us to, think about those practices that nourish our mind, body, and spirit.
Right.
And that could be anything.
Yeah.
It could be taking a bath, reading a book, spending time in nature.
Yes.
Just giving ourselves permission to rest.
Absolutely.
To recharge.
Yeah.
And to just reconnect.
And to honor our own energy.
Yeah.
Which I think is another really important theme.
It is. It is, yeah. And then there's a prompt that just kind of brings all of this together.
Okay.
And it asks us to write about what it means to you to live as your authentic magical self.
I love that.
Right. So it's about letting go of expectations, embracing our individuality,
yes,
and really just shining our own unique light.
Exactly. And doing it without apology.
Yes, exactly. So what does this all mean?
Well, I think even though these prompts are framed, within this kind of witchy context, there's something here for everyone who's interested in self-discovery.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about connecting with nature.
Yes.
Setting intentions, honoring our lineage.
Yeah.
And really embracing all parts of ourselves.
Yes.
The light and the shadow.
Absolutely.
And what I think is so cool about these prompts is that they encourage us to tap into our intuition.
Yes.
And to just approach life with this sense of wonder and playfulness. Yeah. And I think that can be really empowering.
Absolutely. And remember, you don't have to identify as a witch to benefit from these prompts.
Absolutely not.
They're just invitations to kind of dive deeper and explore our own unique path.
Exactly. So, as we wrap up our deep dive today, I'd love to leave you with one final prompt.
Okay.
And I want you to think about this, as you continue exploring these ideas.
Okay.
If you could create your own witchy journal prompt, what would it be?
Ooh. I like it.
Yeah. What question would you ask yourself to really spark that inner exploration?
That's a good one.
And remember, the magic is always there, waiting to be uncovered.
Beautiful. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Thanks for having me.